sky. I'll sing till the sun rises high. Carnival time is here, magical time of year. And as the time draws near, dreams lift my heart. I'll sing as I play my guitar. I'll cling to a dream from afar. Will love come my way this carnival day and stay here in my heart? Will true love come my way on the carnival day, or will I be alone in my dream?
A little bossa nova to start the morning on election day. Can everyone hear me? Yeah? Okay, good. Well, we still have a minute, but I don't know if any of you know that song. It's a bossa nova song from a movie called Black Orpheus. And the reason I played it is because the lyrics are, "The dawn of a beautiful morn, a new song is born." And the image in the movie is of a guitarist who happens to be a mailman. Now, there's a metaphor for today, election day. In this case, the mailman, Orpheus, is the hero of the movie. And he has a woman he's in love with and two little boys who are his hanger-ons, as he, Orpheus, is a wonderful singer. And he says, the little boys say to him, "I know I'm getting started a moment early today, but I'm got the song going." And so the boys say to the master guitarist, "Is it true that you wake up the sun every morning with your guitar?" And he says, "Yes." And then he plays this beautiful love song that again begins, "The dawn of a beautiful morn, a new song is born." And then it continues, "It sings of your eyes, of your laughter," and concludes, "At the dawning of a new love." And so on election day, our psalm today, I picked up the wrong psalm. I got too many psalms here before me. One moment. I got it. The psalm today, Psalm 57, is an election day song. Now, we have different politics, I assume, in any group. And so this is not meant to be a political statement. And at the same time, no matter where you are on the political spectrum, we can all hope that with elections begins a new dawn. And in some cases, this psalm may ring even more true in terms of a psalm for today. One comment after having played that little piece, that was Perry Como singing an English version of what is a Brazilian song. That's the movie Black Orpheus that came out in 1959 and 1959, and introduced samba, introduced Brazil to America. I just watched it this morning to prepare for this class today because I read Rabbi Richard Levy shared that in Black Orpheus is that image of singing to the sun to rise, which is also an image from our psalm this morning, which I entitled, Let Me Awaken the Dawn. So an aside, this is a Portuguese-Brazilian translation of my book, Does the Soul Survive? And a group of synagogues in Brazil got together and translated it. And Linda and I spent last November, 1 year ago this month, touring Brazil, where I spoke in many different Jewish communities and got to spend some time in Rio de Janeiro, where Black Orpheus takes place. So if you've never seen Black Orpheus, I had until this morning. It makes you want to go to Brazil. It's a beautiful film. All right, so listen with an ear for yourself why you might think this is an election day psalm. Coincidentally, I did not plan it that way, but you will see some of the same motifs we've seen reoccurring in Psalms, namely that of the evildoer, that the psalmist prays to be subdued, or in some cases, as we'll see tomorrow, here's a Vorspeise for tomorrow, Psalm 58, the righteous shall bathe feet in the blood of the wicked. So that's a quote from tomorrow's psalm. So that's a little bit more violent than today. So today, today's psalm, Psalm 57, let me put it up and read it, do a little analysis, but today, more so, I invite us to read this particular psalm with an eye toward how on this day does it resonate. And so, Psalm 57, let me awaken the dawn. For the conductor of Al Tashchet, of David a Michtam, when he fled from Saul in the cave. Be gracious to me, God, be gracious to me, for in your spirit, for in you, my spirit has taken refuge, and in the shadow of your wings I will shelter until disasters pass. I will call out to God Elyon, to El that accomplishes it for me. God will send from heaven and deliver me from the humiliation of those who yearn to swallow me up. Selah. God shall send forth mercy and truth. My spirit is among lions who lie beside those who are aflame, mortals whose teeth are spears and arrows, and their tongue is a sharp sword. Be exalted over the heavens, God. Over all the earth be your glory. A net they have set for my steps. My spirit is bowed down. They dug before me a pit, and they have fallen into it. My heart is steadfast, God. My heart is steadfast. I will sing and I will hymn. Awaken my glory, awaken lute and lyre. Let me awaken the dawn. I will thank you among peoples, my supreme one. I will sing praises to you among the nations. For great until the heavens is your kindness, and until the skies is your truth. Be exalted over the heavens, God, over all the earth, your glory. Well, we'll wind up talking about how this might apply on this day, but first, let me take you back in time to what is considered to be the setting for this psalm, and that's 1 Samuel 24. Once again, in reading Psalms, we are given context to revisit the history of King David. And so this psalm begins with when he fled from Saul in the cave, which is widely identified by the commentators as 1 Samuel 24. But let me get a little running start. Psalms 57, 58, and 59, this week's Psalms, are al tashchet, which means do not destroy. It's distinctive, and you have it now with 3 Psalms in a row as part of the description. Some say that it's the name of a musical instrument that has kind of a mournful sound. Others say that it's the theme of these Psalms, which is a plea to God to not destroy the psalmist. Michtam, as we saw last week, we don't know in the biblical context what it meant, but it would later be understood in Hebrew as an aphorism. And so now the last part of verse 1, when he fled from Saul in the cave. Last week, we had King David fleeing Saul when the Zivites had come where he was hiding and told David of that. And Saul had pursued him, but at the last moment, Saul got a message as they had David encircled, and they said, "You got to come, the Philistines are attacking." And so David flees to the wilderness of En-Gedi. That's the beginning of chapter 24. And there he is in hiding with his men. He's not alone. He has certain troops with him. And here's where it picks up with verse 3. So Saul took 3,000 picked men from all Israel and went in search of David and his men in the direction of the rocks of the wild goats. That's the translation of En-Gedi, which is near the Dead Sea. And he came to the sheepfolds along the way. There was a cave there, and Saul went in to relieve himself. Now David and his men were sitting in the back of the cave. David's men said to him, "This is the day of which the Lord said to you, I will deliver your enemy into your hands. You can do with him as you please." David went and stealthily cut off the corner of Saul's cloak. Verse 6, but afterward David reproached himself for cutting off the corner of Saul's cloak. He said to his men, "The Lord forbid that I should do such a thing to my Lord, the Lord's anointed, that I should raise my hand against him, for he is the Lord's anointed." David rebuked his men and did not permit them to attack Saul. Saul left the cave and started on his way. Then David also went out of the cave and called after Saul, "My Lord King." Saul looked around, and David bowed low in homage with his face to the ground. And David said to Saul, "Why do you listen to the people who say, 'David is out to do you harm'? You can see for yourself now that the Lord delivered you into your hands in the cave today. And though I was urged to kill you, I showed you pity. For I said, I will not raise a hand against my Lord, since he is the Lord's anointed. Please, sir, take a close look at the corner of your cloak in my hand. For when I cut off the corner of your cloak, I did not kill you. You must see plainly that I have done nothing evil or rebellious, and I have never wronged you. You are bent on taking my life. May the Lord judge between you and me, and may God take vengeance upon you for me, but my hand will never touch you." It continues in verse 17. When David finished saying these things to Saul, Saul said, "Is that your voice, my son David?" And Saul broke down and wept. He said to David, "You are right, not I. For you have treated me generously, but I have treated you badly. Yes, you have revealed how generously you treated me. For the Lord delivered me into your hands, and you did not kill me. If a man meets his enemy, does he let him go his way unharmed? Surely the Lord will reward you generously, for you have done for me this day. I know that you will become king, and the kingship over Israel will remain in your hands. So swear to me by the Lord that you will never destroy my descendants or wipe out my name from my father's house. David swore to Saul. Saul went home, and David and his men went up to the strongholds. So this song is a turning point in David's life. Though I will add, and this is tomorrow's psalm, King Saul will be persuaded to renew at a later phase the hunt for King David. That's tomorrow with that more destructive language. But today, Psalm 57, at least in the introduction, are words of a moment in David's life where he saw a new beginning, where he saw his righteousness recognized, and more, where he saw and heard King Saul not only acknowledge David's goodness, but foretold that he, without jealousy foretold, would become the king of Israel. And so now verse 2, Chaneni Elohim Chaneni, and that word chen, which is grace, kindness undeserved, kindness expecting nothing in return. Chaneni Elohim Chaneni, kivecha chasaya nafshi, for in you my spirit has taken refuge. And in the shadow of your wings I shall shelter until disasters pass. So this image of the psalmist feeling danger and finding comfort. One second, we have somebody's on. All right, I'll go back. And we find if somebody's on, just double check to mute yourself. So here, the psalmist is feeling endangered and yet hopeful, more than hopeful, trusting in safety of God's wings. And you have the image with wings of being nestled, of being brought close to the heartbeat, to the warmth, to the enduring presence of God. In the shadow, uvetzel kenafecha echseh, in the shadow of your wings I shelter until disasters pass. And now two different, more, if you will, ancient names for God. I will call out to God Elyon, often translated as Most High, to El that accomplishes it for me. El is the generic name for God in Canaan. So we find it in Canaanite inscriptions as well. And there's a quality, these aren't the names for God often used in Scripture, but they are there. But there's something primal about them, precisely because they are of the larger world of the biblical period. I will call out to God Elyon, to El that accomplishes it for me. There's something foundational. God will send from heaven and deliver me from the humiliation of those who yearn to swallow me up. Selah. And again, with Selah, that's the first part of the psalm. Mind you, even the numbering of the psalms comes much later. They weren't written by the psalmist with the verses broken up. That's a later emendation, a later part of the compilation. And so God shall send forth mercy and truth. Chasdo va'amito. Chasdo, I will send forth, I usually translate it as kindness and truth. And many of the biblical commentators identify it as the kindness of covenant. It's the kindness of fulfilling expectations of this covenantal agreement. Va'amito, and truth or faithfulness. And now again, back to danger. My spirit is among lions. Some translate it as among young lions. I lie beside those who are aflame. Lo hatim, that's the same word used for those cherubs at the entrance to the Garden of Eden with their fiery swords. Lo hatim, aflame. So he, the psalmist, sees danger. Levaim is sometimes translated as young lions. That the world around him, he can't quite get his rest. He is tossing and turning because of danger. Mortals whose teeth are spears and arrows, and their tongue is a sharp sword. Now a shift in the psalm, a shift from physical danger to the danger of the tongue. It is the tongue that is like a weapon of spears and arrows, a sharp sword that creates that physical danger. It's not contradictory. It's, and some commentators will say that it is, but I see them as intertwined. It is through words that are like spears and arrows that spears and arrows will emerge. And now back to God. Be exalted over the heavens, God, over all the earth be your glory. And back to the enemies. It goes back and forth. And net they have set for my steps. My spirit is bowed down. Some, by the way, instead of my spirit is bowed down, translate this as they bow my neck down, which is a possibility, which again, in either case, means he's feeling deeply depressed. They dug before me a pit, and now a turning point, but they have fallen into its midst. But they have fallen into the pit, into the trap that they set for me. Selah, and draw the line. And now celebration. The psalm having the enemy fallen into their own trap is now feeling liberated, and he rejoices. Nachon, libi Elohim, steadfast is my heart, God. My heart, steadfast is my heart. Some translate that as firm is my heart. Ashira va'azamra, I will sing and I will hymn. And now, verse 9, awake, Ura is a song. Ura, Ura, Ura chivodi, Ura, Ura, Ura hanavel, Hanevel v'chinor, ha'ira shachar. All right, you may know that song. I tried finding it on YouTube, but I couldn't find it. But it's a popular song of celebration in Hebrew. Awake, my glory. Awake, lute and lyre. Let me awaken the dawn. Now, this line, Ira Shachar, let me awaken the dawn, as is the nature of these things, has multiple meanings. It can, well, let me back up. Ura chivodi. Ura, Ura, Ura chivodi. Awake, my glory. Now, double entendre. My glory. Glory is the name of God, and one of God's names. It's also identified with that aspect of the divine in us when we reflect God's presence. And so, awake my glory in this moment of celebration could mean, awake my Lord, awake God, let me play instruments and let me sing to you. Or, awake my glory, ura chevodi, could mean, awake within me, my spirit. You who have felt depressed, no longer. Awake, feel renewed, feel reborn. Awake with lute and lyre and instruments in our tradition. Let's underscore that, and we'll see that throughout Psalms. And Psalms are songs, and songs are enhanced by musical instruments. Awake, lute and lyre. And now that line, let me awaken the dawn. And that's where I opened with that song from Black Orpheus that I was so joyed to watch this morning, with the song, The Dawn of a Beautiful Morn, a New Song is Born. And the Let Me Awaken the Dawn has this sense of, why I was in darkness and now the sun is rising. That's a poetic way. Let me awaken the dawn. I who am in darkness will no longer be in darkness. Let me sing to the sun as it rises. For a new sun, the dawn, marks a new beginning, a new phase. And now verse 10, I will thank you, God, among peoples, my supreme one. I will sing praises to you among the nations. For great until the heavens is your kindness. Returning to that word chasdecha in verse 11, and then amitecha. And unto the skies is your truth. Those two are the emblematic qualities of God, kindness and truth. Be exalted over the heavens, God, over all the earth, kivodecha, your glory. This image of glory appeared a little bit early, verse 6. In fact, verse 6 and verse 12 are the same. It's a refrain. Be exalted over the heavens, God, over the earth, your glory. In 6, it's a prayer, right? Here his spirit is among lions. Their tongue is a sharp sword. Here in verse 6, it's a prayer. Be exalted over the heavens, God, over the earth, be your glory. And then he returns back in verse 7 to describing his predicament, his fear. But now in verse 12, the same line is been transformed from prayer to exaltation. Same words, different context. For the enemy is no more. A new dawn has risen. And now, Ruma al Shemayim Elohim, al kol haaretz kivodecha. Be exalted over the heavens, God, over all the earth, your glory. And once again, your glory, that's the key motif, verse 6 and 12, but also 9. Verse 9, when he begins his song of celebration, awake my glory. All right, I could feel this psalm resonating for me. I now pause. There's, of course, more commentaries to share, but I want to hear what you have to share on election day. How to, again, fine line, but any reactions to this as the psalm of the day, Psalm 57, or questions about the flow of the psalm? All right, I got 2 screens, which delight me. I'm delighted to see we have 23 screens today. So just unmute yourself if you have anything to share about Psalm 57.
You know, if I may, and this is just sort of a commentary relative to the idea of elections and the way.
Yes, go ahead, Richard.
What would you call it? The nature of perhaps the culture at the moment is that it's a, he says, deliver me from the humiliation of those who yearn to swallow me up.
Yeah.
Mortals who
Verse 4.
spears and arrows. Yeah. Verse 5.
Yeah.
And I have to say that makes me sad
Yeah.
to be within a context that there are, potentially there are those who would look to me in that way, of my own people.
Yeah.
That's not to say everybody's that, we could be majoring in the minors, but yet it is sad and maybe in some ways disturbing to be in that kind of context. When I was a kid, when I was young, at least, maybe I was innocent of that, but I also, as I've gotten within this last couple of decades or 3 decades or so, there's more of that context. Anyway, I'm kind of wandering. I'll turn it back over to you. Sorry.
No, Richard, that's very helpful to me. And here's what your comment prompted in me, and that is, and I want to say this with humility. There are people on two sides of a political debate, and the fear, frankly, of this next week is however the election turns out, that there will not be violence, that there will not be violent words, that there will not be demonization of the other. And that's what I heard you feeling concerned about. And verse 4 and 5, wherever you are in the political spectrum, is the plea for words not to be swords. And to know, on the flip side, the danger of words to lead to violence. Words created the world in our creation story. And as it says in Proverbs, life and death is within the power of words. So verses 4 and 5. Thank you. Any other, Julia?
I was wondering if you were also thinking about the David story as you recounted it, and that he, he's angry at Saul, but he doesn't kill him. He accepts that he has been anointed by God. And our desire in this moment to have the other side accept the voice, not God's voice, but the voice of the people, and not, even though we might be unhappy with the outcome, to get into that cave and maybe cut the cloak, which could be seen as like voicing your opinion, but not engaging in violence. So maybe cutting the cloak, like it's okay to litigate, like this is going to be litigated. So like cutting the cloak is okay, but so not cutting the person. Or...
So Julia is an extension of Richard, and that is the image of the cave is one of self-restraint. The soldiers are saying, this is your opportunity to kill Saul. And David says, no, because this is God's anointed, which is to say, to play with it. If we can create a transformation to allow for reconciliation, that's the goal, not the death of the other, even the one who pursued me. The image of South Africa, of the reconciliation period, where people could hear the story and do it with a quality of seeking new dawns, new beginnings, is part of the cave story that Julia sees as the context. Because once again, we don't know how these psalms or what prompted who wrote these psalms, but whoever did, by putting that image of the cave in the outset, saw that description of reconciliation and restraint that enabled reconciliation as the goal. You'll note in Psalm 57, there is no ask for the destruction of the enemy. In this case, the enemy that David feared falls into its own trap. It's not, he doesn't, in this case, he's asking to be delivered from humiliation, delivered from the terror even of the enemy. But in this case, in contrast to tomorrow, which has much more violent imagery of vengeance, that's not Psalm 57. All the more, the image of the cave is restraint and reconciliation. With that, one closing comment by Mimi, and then we'll pull this together. Go ahead, Mimi.
Very short, and it is. The last part of verse 2 is, in the shadow of your wings, God's wings, I will shelter until disasters pass, which is in this moment also.
Yeah, all the more on this day. It's a day of watching and trusting, ultimately having no choice but to trust. A day which many of us on different sides of the political spectrum, all Americans, have reason to look forward and say 2020 has been awful. There has been a surreal number of problems. May looking forward post-election, may there indeed be the rising of a new dawn. And so with that, let me invite those who would wish to say Kaddish to honor the memories of loved ones to join together.
Thank you.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah
Amen.
bi'alma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon u'vyomechon u'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael ba'agala u'vizman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam u'me'olam. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei v'kudsha v'ru le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei Shama Rabba min Shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mrumav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. And let me see one moment, one second, if I can.
If you manage a team,
no.
You have to try Monday.com. Monday.com is a platform.
I wanted to close with the
everything
song from Black Orpheus.
We use it for all our projects.
One second. But all right. Is that up on the screen? No, it's not. All right. So just 2 words.
Louis, you were just magnificent. I don't speak Brazilian, but see if you can understand me. You play.
All right. To all.
Me sing.
1 second.
Together, music, maybe.
All right. I didn't succeed. Watch the movie Black Orpheus, and I hope that we have the chance tomorrow at 9:30 to study Psalm 58 together, a strong psalm entitled, "The Righteous Shall Bathe Feet in the Blood of the Wicked." Strong, unusually strong in terms of a request for vengeance. So have a good day. Be well. God bless.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're
Bye-bye,
welcome.
everyone.